Hi everybody, welcome to our work in the Glickman test, which is specifically going to look at evaluation skills. I like the graphic that I chose to put on here because unfortunately this is what our system has boiled down to and what evaluation looks like. This notion of what outstanding looks like: excellent, very good, satisfactory, and below average. All of us want to keep climbing the step and all of us want to land on outstanding. Well, we're going to talk about what that looks like in the form of observation and supervision. So the last few chapters really worked on this professional development. I would argue they are more of the how-to chapters that'll help you as you learn more and you determine what you need to do to be effective to conduct observations. This chapter is going to have a different approach because it's going to also look at program evaluation as well before we get into teacher evaluation. I value program evaluation a lot. Unfortunately, our master's program does not have a program evaluation class built into it. But I think this chapter could be divided into two because the content is really different in theory, and I think it's important that you see how both aspects of this kind of relate to each other. So to start off, I give you the definitions of some types of assessments, just so you have a knowledge, if you haven't had an assessment course in a while, of what they look like. So the first one is performance assessment. This is when the children or the students demonstrate a specific skill or product that shows their learning. They are asked to physically do something. This is going to be higher on Bloom's taxonomy. The second one is authentic assessment. This is their actual activities. This is their actual events that are going on. And you're assessing them on their capabilities of what they are naturally doing in their natural environment. Formative assessment is what we've talked about a lot already in this class. This is the idea of pretty much just gathering information, using it for what we can, and shaping our instructional programs based off of that assessment information. Summative assessment is done at the very end of a school year or grading period, and it shows how much the children have learned and the effectiveness of the program once everything is over. So a summative assessment, if we're looking at it the way that we should, it's supposed to be the end. It's supposed to be the final thing, and we've covered everything that we need to cover on that topic. Curriculum-based assessment is basically saying that children are always going to be assessed on what's taught, and curriculum-embedded assessment is what we're going for. This is saying that assessment is integrated with teaching and learning experiences. So all teachers have to know what type of assessment methods work and which ones are appropriate. Teachers should be skilled and well-versed at choosing appropriate methods. They have to be able to develop assessment methods in a number of different assessment methods as well. They have to score and interpret the results of ones that they've produced and the ones that the other external organizations, like standardized tests, produce. They have to be able to use those results and make decisions that can impact programs or students individually. They have to base grading off of those assessments. I have found teachers struggle mightily with this. They have to be able to communicate assessment results to students, parents, and other audiences. What I would always have my undergraduate students do is write every single report that they had to submit to a parent as if the parent had an 8th grade education. I think that's the smartest way to communicate assessment, and why I kind of look at this whole white paper concept. If there's anything unethical or illegal going on, that should be recognized as well. So instructional supervision really should influence program evaluation because you're looking at how supervision changes the program more than anything else. When evaluating an instructional program, in evaluating whether or not the program met its objectives, you need to keep teacher evaluation separately. If you can't do it, that's going to cause a massive issue because then the teachers are evaluated on a program that potentially you don't like or potentially a program that failed within your organization. So try to keep those components separately. So I like this. I thought this was the funniest thing in the textbook. There was a statement made regarding different types of methods of judgment and assessment. It was comedic, but I think a lot of us have had experiences like this where we were put in this position where we had to evaluate. So I'll give you some of the methods and you can kind of tell me what you think about them. So the first one is the cosmetic method. If it looks good, it's going to be good. if we think that it looks presentable, we cover it in our bulletin boards, we put it everywhere, and we show that, look, this is what the assessment did. The cardiac method basically says that no matter what the data says, you know in your heart that the program was a success, it worked, so we're just going to go with it. The heart's beating, the program worked, so that's how we're going to approach it. The colloquial method, this is basically saying that people at the end of the meeting go to the watering hole or to their local establishment, get together and say, well, obviously this worked and we believe it worked, and everybody agrees that the decision worked and nobody can refute a group decision. Curricular method is saying that it was implemented and it didn't cause any stress, it didn't take away from anything that was currently going on. And there's no disruption to the current school program. This is one that teachers love, obviously. If you have data for the computational method, you just drop it on people and you analyze in the depth. So people see statistics, they get scared, so we're going to tell ourselves that it was obviously successful because the statistics can be made to make it look successful. So that is really how data has been evaluated in lots of organizations. And people laugh, all kidding aside. I thought this was funny. I get a kick out of it, so I thought it was interesting to present. But the truth of the matter is this. Many people are scared to make these tough decisions because of that. Program evaluations are fake more than anything else. So I'm going to give you the main decisions of program evaluation and show you what you should and could be looking for. So, much like in student evaluation, program evaluation is formative and summative in nature. Formative happens during the program. You can make changes to the program as it goes along. You can get input from the teachers. You can say if something's not working, well, what can we possibly do to shift it and make it look better? Summative evaluation is the judgment on the program at the end of it and whether or not it should be brought back the following year, the following semester, and if we should continue with it. The evaluations for programs, I have found in my experience, come from central administration. They tend to give them to the building principal and say, well, here are the decisions, it's either A or B, and teachers do get left out of the evaluation process. The teacher opinion does not really get presented to, it doesn't get presented to administrators. So if you have a new program and you don't think it's working, you think it could be fixed, find ways to ask teachers their opinion and get their feedback whenever you possibly can, and it's one of the smartest things that you can do. So, questions are normally focused on implementation, procedures, and outcomes. I think implementation questions are more geared towards training and structure, whether the administrators and teachers have learned the model, and outcome-based questions are all really based on student learning. You could do qualitative if you're asking them what specifically they learned from the procedure, but I would say anything outcome-based really is data-driven, and the implementation one is more on the teachers, and if they're structured the program right, what needs to be changed, that sort of thing. So you have to use multiple types of methods to gather data and try to collect it to ensure validity. You have to make sure that the program is based off of whether or not people knew how to do it first. So if they could implement the program, then you can look at test scores and what the principal or teacher thought. But if the program wasn't implemented correctly and there could be things that could be tweaked, you can't rely on those test scores to make those final decisions on the program. Data analysis is always determined based on the data that you get, and that's another what I would consider to be critical idea. Sometimes, if it's complex, you need university experts, private experts, or central office to get involved, but for things that are basic programming decisions, you hope that it can be done at the building level, and the people that you're working at the building level find a way to make sure that that they can assess it and they can provide a fair analysis. So I call these white papers for program evaluation. I think they are quick, dirty, should be easily read, and should basically give you an overview of whether or not you keep the program going or not. And there should really be not much extra to it. I want them to be quick and dirty, written at an 8th grade level. Everybody in the district should be able to read it and should be able to make some sort of judgment on the program based off of what they read. You want to address the results, conclusions, or recommendations at the beginning, because it's just like a newspaper heading. People are only going to read the first part of it, they might scan the middle, and then they'll go to the end. So try to make sure that the recommendations and conclusions are addressed in both places. So Then if you're looking at does our instructional program work, in theory that should be completely different than a specific program evaluation. There's a 5-phase model that can be used for school-wide instructional improvement. Teachers and other members of the community must be involved in the process, and that's kind of what makes it work. So phase 1, there's 14 areas that our textbook suggests looking at. I'm not going to present all of them. I encourage you to look on your own and see if any of these can help you. It really depends on the program, so me looking at it really does nothing. The biggest thing that I took away from this was that you have to target selected areas based on what the program's goals and outcomes were. If you choose too many things to assess the instructional program on, the evaluation would be too heavy, and then you're not seeing if one area of it worked and maybe another one did not work. So more importantly, now you're looking at specific evaluation questions. You're making sure that everybody understands what the program's goals were, what the program was supposed to accomplish, and then you're taking those questions and making sure that everybody who is involved in the evaluation is able to comment and change them if they want, and those people need to understand the questions. So you're designing the questions so that they hit the purpose of the evaluation and they're also understandable. So when you design an evaluation, a lot of times it's done by consultants, and you know that. You don't need me to tell you that. It's a consultant-driven industry, and the consultants are the ones that tend to make the decisions. However, that being said, in a good organization, the consultants will work with central administration to get the point and purpose, and then the teachers are given the framework. They contribute their things, ways that they think that data should be collected, and opinions on whether or not the system worked or not. You hope by the time that you get to this stage that the teacher's voice is heard and the teacher has done essentially what you've wanted them to do and what you've expected them to do throughout the process. But once again, I do need to say that also is easier said than done. Sometimes the teachers just aren't going to get involved by choice of the district. Next, everybody should work together to gather the necessary data. The teacher should do it on the ground level, the administrators should interpret the data, and the consultant should look at some of the big pictures. If there's a confidentiality issue, then you have to figure out what you're going to do to protect the confidentiality of the people that are involved. Finally, you prepare and present the evaluation report. You need to assess whether or not an actual causal relationship exists. Think of all the areas that could be affected. And what I was thinking was, let's say there's a problem that you're seeing, that there's an increase in first grade discipline with students. So could that be ineffective teachers, or could it be scheduling concerns that they're being cooped up in a classroom for 5 or 6 hours and they're eating last? You have to look at everything and other X factors that could influence it. And everybody should agree on the factors before they're sent out to somebody else. So program evaluation should be used to empower teachers and give them opportunities in the process to have say and also to say more about what's going on. And when you can do that, you're doing something good that's beneficial to the teaching population that you have. So you want to obviously decide on the mission, evaluate the program, and plan for the future. All of this goes with anything that you would be doing in a professional learning community anyway. So think about the way that the school can take ownership over evaluation and consult others. So supervisors have to give teachers the correct amount of support and the necessary support for them to be able to do this. And they need to have skills so that they understand how they gather data, how they analyze it, and what that looks like. Administrators have to give moral support as well, because they have to show the teachers that they believe in what they're saying and that the teacher input isn't just going to get flushed down the toilet as soon as the evaluation is over. They need to be able to show that they give faith to the teachers to make their own judgments as well. So it should be done to help the school, to help the teachers, and in theory it should improve the culture of the school. In order for this to work, there has to be equal collaboration between the teachers and administrators. You and I all know that that can be a challenge sometime, and we've talked about that throughout this class. We want people to know what they're doing, though, in the evaluation procedure, and it should be self-directed. The teacher should have a goal in mind, and they should know what they need to do, and the administrator should help them achieve those goals so that they can make their own judgment and it's not influenced by anybody else. Teacher evaluation is some of the same skills as program evaluation, but it requires different strategies and techniques. You need to make sure that the formative evaluation is the stuff that you're doing when you're walking around the classroom. If you see something little that a teacher could do better, and the summative is your final overall arching decision on the teacher, but it should not be 100% tied to one 45-minute clinical supervision model. That actual observation is there. It determines whether or not the teacher meets expectations, but those tools should be streamlined and standardized so that we're not just saying that one tool serves all, one observation serves all. That is the worst thing that you can do in this profession. You want to make sure that you're doing what you can to benefit the teacher and give them a chance to improve if an observation went poorly. So, formative evaluation, this is when you walk around, you help your teachers, you give them opportunities, you let them make quick fixes in their practice if you think that that can help them. Good principals do this when they have time. You remember me talking earlier in the class about how principals love to do this, but they don't have time to do this. You want principals to have time to do this and use it as best as you can as an encouragement tool. So, you have to keep these separately. Formative and summative evaluation need to be done in two separate ways. The formative should be ongoing all year round and should be there with the goal to help teachers. Summative evaluation tends to be more or less this gotcha than anything else. So I wrote this report, I noticed it's in January, I noticed you did something wrong in October, gotcha. In a formative evaluation, you would focus the teachers and get them on the same page and you would help them to improve on that. If a teacher is comfortable with you doing formative evaluation, it is going to make their actual observation and their summative evaluation from you at least a little bit more comfortable because they're going to believe in it and they're going to understand it. So I always suggest this, but as we know, sometimes the best practices never happen. But in theory, if you can somehow use a different evaluator for summative evaluation than use for formative evaluation, it's great. If you can get somebody that's going to be your cycler, and they're going to observe and they're going to do walkthroughs with half the building, and then the other administrator is going to do with the other half, and then you're going to switch and do your final write-ups, this is something that can help. If you're trying to improve a teacher's approach to teaching, don't switch to a formal evaluation. Make sure that they know you're trying to help them, you're trying to make them improve. And summative evaluation ends up focusing on meeting minimum expectations if you've done it correctly. So the other thing that you can do is you can encourage this concept of a teacher self-evaluation. This is when you basically tell the teacher to videotape their own teaching, watch it back, reflect on it, critique on it, and for a lot of us it's very difficult the first time that we see ourselves teach. I know I talk fast, but the first time that I watch one of my videos back, I know that I talk fast. So what you're watching here is kind of a teaching portfolio that shows the work that I've done as a teacher and kind of what that looks like and how I've presented it. So that's it. That's the only thing we're going to cover related to program evaluation. The next Glickman chapter really is focused on methodology for direct assistance, and this will go over that full clinical supervision model that we've been alluding to this entire course. As always, let me know if I can do anything to help. Thank you very much.